Hey, yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to License to View on an early Saturday morning. This
Yes,
is a weekly podcast where two best friends get together, talk about pop culture news, movies, anime, TV shows, all that jazz.
all that jazz.
I'm Jason. That's Zach. What's going on, man?
Oh, man, another busy week here. It's just getting by day. You know how it
Yeah,
is.
absolutely, man. I want to preface this before we even get into the show, like even
Okay,
before we start doing anything, is
okay,
that uh, this is week 3 for Kaiju Month. We're
it
celebrating
is.
Kaiju Month, and we're every week we're watching a Kaiju movie. That's the focus of the show, the main
Yes.
main topic of the show. This movie sucked. This movie sucked
Um,
dick.
it's a different kind of kaiju movie than I think you normally expect. I think it's more in line with like the original Godzilla, where it's really not like about giant monsters fighting each other. It's
Oh
more
no,
about like a giant monster is like a natural
I'm
disaster.
fine with that. I
So it wasn't
just
as fun.
well, there's that, but also I think the pacing was terrible. I
Yeah.
think the monster design was terrible.
You didn't like the monster design? I
No,
like the
and
monster
I
design a
think
little
the
bit.
the animation quality was trash.
Hmm.
He was so stiff. Uh, uh,
He was
uh.
really wiggly, actually.
The
When he was
tail
like in
was
his worm
the
form.
that part was okay looking. I
Yeah.
think my biggest issue with it was quality of those special effects just didn't look good
Mm.
for especially for 2016.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff. I didn't mind the monster design, but there's specifically parts where it was like where there's shots where they're like showing like helicopters and stuff like that, and I'm looking at it and I was like, okay, that's clearly like CGI, like they're not real helicopters, and it's very
There is something
strange.
about Japan and how they do special effects like
Hmm.
CG that very rarely from like these major movies that looks
Yeah.
great. I don't know
Hmm.
what it is. Whether you can insert any like anime movie based like real life anime movie,
Mm.
insert anything with these special effects heavy like monster designs, or
Hmm.
even when you watch like anime that's CG, like
Hmm.
it looked like that to me. And
Hmm.
I thought the pacing was bad, and they have no idea what we're talking about. But we'll get to that point in a little bit. I think the pacing was bad. I thought the actual I was timing it. There would be like 30-minute gaps between like
Oh yeah. Well, it's
monster
like,
attacks.
it's like it takes an hour into the movie for there to actually be like
Something.
any action taken against the monster.
Yes.
But I mean, as far as pacing is concerned, I think that goes into the whole thing where it's like I don't know. I mean, the whole thing's centered around like bureaucracy and like how
Yeah.
bad bureaucracy is, and so I think the pacing, for me, the pacing kind of fit into that, where it's like everything's just taking so long because there's just so much red tape that everything has to go through, and so it's like,
Sure.
as their actions are being like slowed down against the creature, the movie's also being slowed down and like getting a response to the creature. So there's
Sure.
kind of like that
And
parallel
that
in
works
there.
to me. That would work perfectly fine if it was a slow burn Dennis Villeneuve crime movie. This is
Mm,
Godzilla, and
mm,
I get that there is the level of like fear that Hideki,
mm-hmm.
whatever his name
Yeah.
is trying to build. Man, I heard this movie was whatever. By the way, we're talking about Shin Godzilla,
Shin
by the
Godzilla.
way, which is our kaiju movie of the month. And since
Yes.
we're already here, I just want to finish talking about it because
Yeah, I mean, we might as well
I
just finish
didn't
talking
enjoy it
about it.
at all, and I knew that I wasn't going to like it, not because I was coming into it with preconceived notions of that being the guy who made Ava made
Hmm.
this movie, even though that definitely was in my head because I don't like Ava at all.
Mm.
But like, and there wasn't many Ava elements. I mean, there's some with like the destruction of humanity,
I would say,
the
yeah,
nuclear war.
the themes were kind of similar in, yeah, like destruction, humanity, and
Yeah,
like, yeah, definitely like the the perils of like war. And I mean, his big thing, he goes on like a whole thing on like the bad part about like nuclear weapons and
yeah,
stuff like that. Like when the U.S. brings out that they're gonna like
yeah.
nuke him, which is like, for me, it wasn't even the fact that like Japan got bombed by nuclear weapons. Like I get why they're
Yeah,
apprehensive because of that, but it's also just like, I mean, I don't know why. The whole time I'm thinking, I'm just like, you guys are scientists and you know this creature is
yeah,
radioactive. Why are you guys not saying this creature is radioactive? Maybe throwing a bunch
yeah.
of radiation at it is not the best idea possible.
It's to me, it's like the idea, like, okay, how do we beat the Hulk? Let's
Hmm.
nuclear bomb him. You know
Yeah.
what? Maybe
Maybe
not.
not.
Maybe not, because
Maybe that's not the best
he'll
idea.
just soak it up. But
Maybe nuclear bombs aren't always the best option.
whenever I read about like or see like Godzilla stuff that really focuses on the nuclear stuff
Yeah.
and like the aversion against it, I
Hmm.
always get like this like smirky like American thing where I'm like, of course y'all don't like it. Y'all open that
I
can
mean,
of
this movie
worms.
basically says that.
Y'all
You
open
got
that
the
can.
American guys. They're like, of course they don't like it,
Yeah,
but who gives a fuck?
you open that can of worms, baby.
Yeah.
You can't open the can of worms think that you're gonna close it again. You know what I mean? It's called
Yeah.
two worlds for you. Pearl Harbor, bitch.
Yeah.
What'd you expect? Us to
Yeah.
give up? You know.
Mm-mm.
Um, but
But I
primary.
do like. I think that one of the things I liked was the creativity in the movie, specifically in like, I mean, as far as like the bureaucracy goes, they have like this guy basically has his like rebel group of like researchers and whatnot that like
Hmm.
doesn't really have to worry about red tape. It's just like at that point they're like a group of Americans that they're just like spitting ideas
Yeah.
out. And I was like, I love how like for us it's like yeah, a normal group would be like this, but in Japan this is like such a radical idea that people are
Yeah.
like not like going through the chain of command and stuff like
Because
that.
they're so based on organization and following rules
And they're so based on like I mean especially
and
in Japan I
hierarchy.
know that they're based a lot on like hierarchy and like
Hmm.
seniority and like a lot of that plays
Yeah.
like really really deep into how like their politics and stuff works.
I mean, shit. I want to tie this
But I like
in.
their idea of like using blood coagulant to finish my point to like
Right.
freeze Godzilla. I thought that was an interesting idea.
To me, that was the most of all the ways that in these movies where they want to beat Godzilla. That was the most interesting way I've seen.
Yeah,
Like usually it's like blow him up.
yeah.
Maybe we'll knock him into a cavern. This
We'll
was the
have another
most.
giant monster fight
Yeah,
him.
this was the most interesting way of like, okay, how do we beat him? Okay, we're gonna actually gonna like do some sciencey shit.
Yeah.
I hate the monster design.
Mm.
Every evolution of him I thought was T Rex arms. Tail
Yeah,
was
they have the
too
T-Rex
big.
arm.
That tail was too big.
The proportions were very weird. Yeah.
Yeah, proportions were weird. Like the first form, I thought, why was he so goofy looking? And I
Yeah.
get it's supposed to make him look like he's kind of creepy too,
Yeah.
which look that's the Ava shit that I don't
Yeah.
like. Because to me, Godzilla should look cool, and I
Mm.
get that you're making him a threat, so you make him look scary at the beginning. Then he evolves into the cooler looking Godzilla. But
Yeah.
like, he looks so dumb in that first part. Like that when he's
The
like,
the worm shit.
yeah, he
Yeah.
looks so stupid. The eyes look so stupid. I
The
literally,
eyes look weird. He's got
I
like like weird like fish eyes.
I literally had to stop the movie and then Google and be like, is this Godzilla? Is there two monsters in this movie, or is there one monster? And people are like, oh yeah, there's one monster. I go, that looks dumb. That looks so fucking dumb. He's gonna henshin into a god to still. I kept thinking to myself, like he's gonna henshin and then get bigger arms. No, never
He
does.
got slightly bigger arms.
Not enough to fucking matter,
No,
you
it's not
know.
like no, he's not like picking anything up or
But
anything
he
like
still
that.
has a fucking giant ass tail.
Yeah, that was also weird because like the movie ends on that last shot with the tail,
Yeah,
and there's like weird like human bodies or like
yeah.
creatures coming out of it or something like that. And I was like, I
Ava
don't
shit.
understand that. Yeah, that was the most
Ava
like Ava
shit.
thing in the whole movie where it's like yeah, there's like weird like Godzilla humanoid looking because they have
Yeah.
like Godzilla faces almost, but they're
Hmm.
like human skeletons and they're like popping out of his tail or something. I don't know. It was very strange. That was the most Ava shit in the whole movie.
I'm just saying, it's been 4 years, and there's a reason why we haven't got another one.
Mm. Well, now he's working on 3.1
Yeah.
plus
Well, you've been working on that
1.0.
shit for fucking 10 years now.
Yeah,
Let it go.
yeah.
I
Well, now it's coming out. It's finally
I
coming out. In
but I
January.
really did not like the movie at all. There it was the whole thing, concepts I thought were fine. Like thematically, I thought stuff was fine.
Yeah,
It was just it's pure execution of it. There were so
yeah.
many shots
I
of
would
like
agree with that.
walking down hallways and like there were a couple really
Well,
cool
that's the problem
shots.
with it. Is like, especially for this movie, it's like a movie that's so purely based in bureaucracy.
Yeah.
He tried to make bureaucracy look like action movie like, where it's
Hmm.
like he's got lots of like quick cuts
Like Dutch
and he's
angles.
got lots of like interesting like dynamic shots, but it's
Hmm.
all just like
Just
people
sitting at a
sitting
desk.
around
Yeah.
or like walking in hallways and I'm like I get you're trying to like spruce it up, but there's only so much you can spruce up like people talking about why they can't do such and such thing because
Hmm.
they need the prime minister's permission.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I didn't care about any of that.
Yeah.
Um, and then like there were a couple of cool shots, like I said. There's a shot, I think, in the middle of the movie. I think when
Mhm.
Godzilla's in his second form, I think when he um like re-arrives at that town or whatever, and there's a
Mhm.
shot where like it's a car driving, and
Mm.
it's a
Yeah, I
shot
like
looking
that
up.
shot.
That shot was cool. Again, the animation looks like shit. So
Yeah.
so it's not about like if that was an American movie, it would look 10 times better because they would put more money
Well, I mean,
into
they
that
basically
effect.
did that in like 26. Because I think God's America's Godzilla also came out in like 2016 or
Something like that, yeah,
2017.
right? 2014.
And then it's like a very similar shot like that, not like in a car, but I mean, you've got lots of those like third person like POV
Yeah,
shots of Godzilla like that in
yeah,
that movie.
right.
And I also just like that
It gives you
design
that
of that
like that
film.
that, that like man on the street kind of view,
Hmm.
and that's a cool shot always because you
Yeah.
see the perspective
Hmm.
like of the size of the monster. But like it just still looked out of place to me. Like obviously I know Godzilla's not real, but like there's something about the quality of special effect and CG where like
Hmm.
to me the monster never looked like he was actually physically there. And then when he does
Yeah.
his like Kamehameha wave and like destroys the fire burst, the first fire burst, and it's
Hmm.
like blowing down the buildings, everything looked such like a corridor digital video in the
Hmm.
actual destruction part. Not him, and the fire looked
Yeah.
fine, and then the actual like plasma beam looked cool. Real quick though,
That
how
honestly, that
fucking
beam shit
bullshit?
was
How
Ava as
fucking
fuck too.
bullshit is
Huh.
that fucking fire beam? Okay, we're gonna drop missiles, and he's gonna fucking just
Oh,
unknowingly scream.
the fin beams are weird, where it's like
Stupid.
he's got like them all like coming out of his fin. I like the tail. I like his breath beam was fine because it's traditional. The tail beam I thought was interesting, but I mean the fin stuff, I was just like that makes no sense.
Yeah, and it's a
I don't.
fucking. If you ever watch Gundam and know what funnels are,
Yeah,
it reminded me of fucking Gundam funnels.
yeah,
It was. It's
which are
stupid.
like bullshit plot devices to
It's
just like get
stupid.
rid of anything in your way.
Exactly. And like it's like you don't need to do that to Godzilla to make him seem scary. He's
Hmm.
already a giant ass monster. You don't
Hmm.
gotta do. He already. You don't gotta give him two different levels of fire beam because
Yeah,
he's already has one fire beam,
yeah.
and that's already scary enough.
Hmm.
Like, what are they gonna do? Henshin to Ultraman? Like, well, they can't do anything.
Yeah,
You know, all they can do is sit there and wait and like have outdated stealth bombers. By the way, we haven't used stealth bombers in years.
yeah.
And then the dialogue between the Americans is so fucking like
Oh yeah,
when they're in the planes,
yeah.
they're like, Roger that, copy that, we're
Yeah.
gonna drop the bombs, copy that. That's so fucking terrible. There's something about for a country that I used to live in
Hmm.
that has bases in it, has American people living in it.
Yeah.
They still don't like take the time to just hire a native English speaker. You see it in
Hmm.
anime all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, they just hire like another Japanese person to do a voice acting.
Well, that was the weird thing about this movie because they have the Japanese chick who's supposed to be an American that had
Mm-hmm.
like Japanese parents.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, because she's supposed to be like an ambassador. I don't know, or she's like the daughter of a senator or something like
The
that. And
way
I was
she
just like,
looks.
the way she looks is fine, but just
No,
like
they're like
as
yeah.
as her trying to be like a Native American, her
But she
English
this
was
is the
like
girl with
not
like
that
this
good.
is like the fringy looking girl, right?
No, no, no. One fringy?
Like there's that one Japanese girl. I can't remember what her character name is. The one who's like she has like more of like edgy look, the edgier look
No,
compared
no. I'm
compared
talking
to
about the like politician, the one that basically is like talking with the main guy at the end.
okay, gotcha.
The like she's supposed to be like an American, but her English is like not American.
Yeah, that's something we can't spend the extra little budget to figure out.
But then they have actual like they
Yeah.
just have like actual Americans in the film.
Well, you know
So
what? He made Ava, so it's
yeah,
okay.
I don't know. I like Ava, and I mean, I didn't hate this movie, but it's definitely not like my favorite
It's
Godzilla
not
movie. It
Godzilla.
definitely has like a lot of flaws in
As
it.
somebody who is not a Godzilla fan and has seen very limited Godzilla, to me this is the exact opposite of what I want Godzilla to be.
Mm,
Like I'm fine with Godzilla being the monster and destroying shit. I'm fine with that.
yeah,
Just I don't want it to be a goofy ass fish monster who molts skin and then
yeah,
has impenetrable abilities and then also has like a little fishman like in his body.
yeah,
A little fuck and like there's nothing how are you going to explain any of that if you wanted to
yeah,
explain it? Like you can't say radioactive monster because that how the fuck does he have little fish people? So are you gonna say
Uh,
he's some sort of like guardian monster that had like what the? I don't know what the fuck you're gonna do.
they made some sort of like half explanation for it, where it was like they said he was like some unknown, previously unknown organism that like basically was like living in an area that like the
Hmm.
Japanese like dumped a bunch of toxic waste in, and he ate the toxic waste, and so that's why he
Yeah.
mutated, from what I understand. But I don't know. The explanation was not good.
And they never are, and I'm okay with that because you don't need the like even in, like with Gamera, like, you don't need
Yeah,
like they explain it a little too much in Gamera. They're like,
yeah,
hey, by the way, he is a monster made from Atlantis. Like, okay, the fuck are we
yeah.
doing, dude? So like, there's that weird level. Like, if you explain too much of the monster, it gets
Mm,
too goofy. If you don't explain enough, okay, it's like we need to know an answer. Like,
yeah.
they don't do they ever explain besides the fact that he's just a guardian monster in the American ones? Like, he's just an old ass monster who guards the planet, right?
Uh, in the 2016 American one, I think they basically said that like, yeah, I think they basically said he was like he's an old monster that like
Like
was
predates
worshipped,
whatever, and they have
predates
like
a bunch of civilizations, and like was worshipped as like a guardian of the earth or something like
because like to
that.
me, like in my mind's eye, which
Hmm.
obviously we'll know more whenever Kong Godzilla comes out. But like,
Yeah,
okay, there's a bunch of different monsters like that
yeah.
from different parts of the
Well, they
world.
kind
Where
of
like
say that in like King of Monsters.
exactly
They basically set that up, that there's just a bunch of different monsters all
these
over the
old
place.
ass monsters who existed pre like Mayan times or whatever the
Yeah.
fuck, and this had their own little cults
Hmm.
that followed them. And Mothra was one of them, and King Kong's one
Yeah.
of them. All this kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that explanation. That's to me is the most reasonable explanation.
Okay.
It's like, okay, the planet's old. How
Yeah.
megalodons existed, so how the fuck do you not know that there's a giant gorilla? So like,
Yeah.
to me that makes more sense than oh, fish ate nuclear waste and fish got big.
Yeah.
Because first off, it's a lizard,
Yeah.
so that deep in the water there's a lizard, or is it a fish man?
Uh, it's like it'd be like a newt, like an amphibian, like a
That deep in the water though?
half lizard, half fish. I don't know.
I feel this thing.
I
I feel
mean,
like
it's a giant amphibian. It's
yeah,
possible.
I feel like amphibians only have such a certain level of depth they can swim to.
Yeah, probably.
But it's an Ava movie. It's officially part of the Ava continuity. So I'm surprised we didn't get a scene of
Yes, it is
Shinji crying.
part of the Ava
I didn't
continuity.
even see the shirt. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
surprised the movie didn't end with some fucking Japanese guy jerking off and crying in a hospital room. You know, or in the what was it in the show? They start clapping.
Oh yeah, everybody just
They
starts
start
clapping with it.
clapping.
Uh,
That's
yeah.
terrible. So
I have
guys,
expected them to do that when Godzilla froze and they're
yeah,
like mission accomplished and everybody was just standing there and I was half
yeah.
expecting people to just start clapping.
What a way to end your show when you have
Yeah.
no budget, because that's why
Yeah.
they did that apparently.
Yeah.
So that's
Those last like 2 or 3 episodes,
yeah,
yeah.
just had no money.
Nope. Well, it was like I was listening to somebody's video. I think it was Beyond Ghibli, or maybe it was Super Eye Patch Wolf.
Hmm.
He was talking about like the production for it, and it was like it wasn't just the fact that like it had no budget, because it had a budget for a long time,
They just
but it
wasted
was
their
like,
money.
well, it wasn't that they wasted their money, but it was they had they had a limited budget by the end, but also Anno was like apparently basically writing like episode to episode.
Hmm.
Like he didn't really have like a complete structure for like what the story was going to be,
Right.
and so it was like I think it was Super Eye Patch Wolf was talking about it. He
Oh, excuse
basically
me.
said that, well, I was like halfway through the season, which is like when that shift in Ava happens.
Hmm.
He basically decided that he like wanted to make a different movie, and the animators were like, "What the fuck?" We were like trying to like do this stuff. They were like trying to get a little bit of a jump, but they basically had to
Yeah.
like scrap everything they had, so they had to like redo everything. And then I guess he had one ending that he had an original ending, and then he had to change it because of the sarin gas attack from Om Shinrikyo happened
Hmm.
around that time. And I think his original ending was like somehow like mirrored that, and so he had to like change it, and so that was like they had to like do a bunch of changes that like
Right.
ended up like wasting their budget at the end. So,
Right. Well,
but
either
yeah,
way, ending sucks. That's why you have a series of movies that you're making to make what you actually wanted to make, and you still take fucking forever.
yeah,
That should have been done in fucking 6 years.
Mm.
3 movies, 4 movies,
4 movies.
6 years. Boom, boom,
Three
boom, done.
movies. I think two of them came out pretty quickly,
2 of them came out pretty quickly, but then the third
and then
one
the
took
third
fucking
one
years.
took like a couple more years after that, and then yeah, like the fourth one's been like 10 years or something like that.
Too much. Well,
Yeah.
guys, that's our Kaiju Month Part 3. We have
Yes.
one more, I believe, next week.
I don't know what we're gonna do. Have we decided
Yeah.
what we're gonna do?
I don't know. We haven't
I
talked
don't
about it
know.
yet.
Maybe King Kong. King Kong might not be bad.
Okay.
Just to, because I mean, if we feel like we've been doing a lot of Godzilla, we could do a King Kong movie.
Sure, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
But before we end the show, obviously we have the usual jazz for the podcast.
Yes.
Um,
Order's out of sync, but that's all right.
that's
We're
fine.
gonna get
That's
back
fine.
into
We
it.
gotta switch it up a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
What we've been up to,
Yes.
and Zach, what have you been up to?
Busy week for me watching wise. Playing wise, I didn't play too much. I just been playing Genshin because they had their first event that started this week, so I've been playing a little bit more of that. That's been kind of fun. Going through that. I got my main bitch, so I've been using her a lot. Jean, who is a 5-star sword wind type, she's great. I love her design, so I've been using her. But I've been playing Genshin, but watching. So first of all, I watched a B movie that I've been wanting to watch for a long time, and I was gonna watch it during Halloween, and then I forgot. So I watched it this week.
Okay.
So I watched. I don't know if you've ever watched this, but I watched Wolf Cop.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
This movie's bonkers.
It is.
I loved it though. It was great. I had a fun time with it. The costume for the wolf looks. It doesn't look terrible, but it definitely looks like a Halloween costume.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it since it came out.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I can't tell you anything that happens in the movie. I can't tell you any of the plot in the movie.
I can guess what you're gonna say.
Okay.
Werewolf sex.
Pee scene.
Oh yeah, that too.
That's the only thing
super weird.
That's the only scene I remember is him taking the pee and then him turning into a werewolf.
Taking a pee and like his wolf penis like
explodes or something.
Explodes out.
That's the only thing I can remember of that movie.
Very strange.
Yeah.
That, and then he has sex as a werewolf, which is weird. But this movie was a lot funner than I thought it was going to be, because it ends up being about reptilians and changelings trying to further their lifespan by drinking the blood of werewolves. And I was like, I was not expecting that. I thought it was just going to be like, werewolf generic cop. Werewolf beats up like drug dealers. And I was like, oh, there's like
which I'm fine with that.
Like lore to it. I was like, yeah, no, I'm fine with that. That was the funnest stuff in the movie, just like learning about that. Not the ending. The ending was kind of like, eh. I mean, the best part of the movie is like when he puts on his cop uniform and like goes and busts like, they're like gas station robbers, and he like tears one of the dude's faces off.
Yeah, I don't remember anything in the movie. Like I said, it's been so long since I've seen it. I've only seen it one time. I had it on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember finishing it and being like, okay. That's a B movie.
I know there's a sequel out. I don't know if I want to watch that, but
Wolf Cop 2.
I think it's called Another Wolf Cop.
Okay, they're trying to be cheeky with that one.
Yeah, they're being really cheeky with it. But yeah, I mean, overall, I had a fun time with it. I mean, if you have like a day when you don't have anything to do and you feel like watching something to turn your brain off and have some fun with, I definitely recommend Wolf Cop. And then the other thing that I did, this is a big thing that I watched, because it took a lot of time and planning.
Ken Burns' country music documentary.
Yes, obviously.
And you should watch it. It's really good. It's really good, just saying. You
said Ken Burns?
Yeah.
I don't know Ken Burns.
You don't know Ken Burns?
Should I know Ken Burns?
What the fuck, bro?
Hold on.
You don't know Ken Burns, famous PBS documentarian.
Oh, wait.
Ken Burns.
RLM Ken Burns?
Ken Burns did Civil War. He did fucking jazz. He did baseball.
Country music by Ken Burns. Oh.
All these he did documentaries, and they're really great.
Interesting.
And he did country music like last year and a half ago, and it was like 8 parts, like 8
parts,
like 12 hours of country music documentary. It was fucking awesome.
Is there that much about country music?
Dude, a fuck ton, dude. Fuck ton.
I guess if you go through like the whole bluegrass and all that
start from the beginning.
Stuff. Yeah.
Start from the beginning and you get to modern day. And I was watching it, and I don't even fucking like country music that much. But I'm watching it being like, man, I fucking listen to country. I like country music.
I like my outlaw country, and I know that
Yeah.
much.
So, no, sorry.
Um,
What'd you say?
no, but I watched the trilogy of films for Fate Stay Night, Heaven Spiel.
Oh, okay. So you
Um,
just really want to. You're in the mood to watch Ava type shit.
I'm in the mood to watch some Ava. It's not really Ava type stuff, but it's like,
Okay,
you
where do
know,
I
it's
start? Where do I start watching Face Day Night?
uh, I would recommend you watch Fate Zero first.
Recommend me watching Face There. So if I go on Reddit right now,
Yeah.
I won't see an argument about where to fucking
Oh, you'll
start
definitely
watching.
see an argument, but you asked me, and that's what I'm telling
So
you,
you're
because
saying
that's where I
I
started.
can't
I started with
I
Fate
can't go
Zero,
on
and I've been
YouTube
able
and
to.
search a Giga video that says that
Oh
tries
my
to
god, that
explain.
Giga video! I watched that before I even knew what Fate was, and it
Mm-hmm.
still made me laugh. And now that I
Mm-hmm.
know what Fate is, I was like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
basically how I
exactly.
like try to get in.
I had no idea what Fate's about. Well, I have a general idea, but like
Yeah.
I watched that video too whenever he posted it, like
Mhm.
whatever. I don't really follow him at the time. I just saw the video,
Yeah.
and it made me laugh because like just even like the concept
Yeah.
was like, okay, this seems stupid.
Yeah.
This franchise seems dumb, and obviously
It's
it's
overtly
cool,
complicated for no real reason.
and it's like such a simple concept, really.
I think the original idea is very simple. And
Like,
the trilogy of films falls in line with like the original visual novel that came out a long time ago, because it's like, all visual novels, they have like branching paths and whatnot, and so Fate Zero is like the prequel to all that. That's why I say I would recommend starting with that first, just because I think for me that's what I started with, and I think it gives you a good build up for like what exactly Fate Stay Night is as a whole, and then it also gives you kind of background into what happens later on when you get to like Unlimited Blade Works in these movies. And they're all done by Ufotable, so they all look great, and I think they're all really really well paced, and the characters are super super interesting.
I can
But
tell you character names, but I have no idea who they are.
mm,
Like I know there's Saber. I
yeah,
know
she
she's
got
blue.
Saber. She got King Arthur. Yeah,
She blue. Oh, that's what she is. Okay, I know
yeah,
there's a guy named Archer, and he red.
yeah, yep,
And then I know there's the main character who's a guy who's also he's supposed to be like the. Okay, hold on. Here's what I remember from
okay,
one of the shows. Like, tell me if I'm
okay,
wrong. I remember watching part of a movie at a convention.
okay.
Okay, the main guy who's
Hmm.
supposed to be like the. Okay, how do I even fucking explain this? I know what it's called, but I can't explain it. Okay, it's like, oh my gosh, in what's that anime called? Fucking
Fate Stay Night.
no. It's it was on Toonami.
Yu Yu
Gosh,
Hakusho.
the little dolls they fight,
Oh, Zatch Bell.
and Zatch Bell and Gash Bell. Sorry. So
Yeah.
the guy who has the spell book, right? That's the equivalent of the main guy in this movie. He's like the
Yeah,
fucking guy,
that's a fair
but
approximation.
he's also actually the bad guy.
No,
He's also like a
he is
wizard.
actually Archer.
Okay. So you're telling me that
Yeah.
you watch this show
Hmm.
and he's with Saber. That's like his like fucking familiar or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And then they fight Red Guy. That's
Yes.
Red Guy.
He's. See, this is what I'm talking about when I say overtly complicated.
Because that doesn't they don't look the same.
They're not. They don't look the same. He's basically him in the future, but basically the way that it works is like him. I mean, basically the way. God, I have to like go into like actual like Fate lore. This is why Giga
Mm-hmm.
like gets headaches when he talks about Fate lore on the podcast, because
Right.
it's too complicated. But basically, the way servants work is you're either a historical figure or you're somebody who's left some sort of significance on the world, and that's what
Right.
qualifies you to be a servant. You have to
Right.
do something like particularly noteworthy and like something that people have talked about for a long time, that kind of thing.
Hitler.
She, no, well, I guess
That
technically
that's technically
nobody's ever summoned Hitler though.
all right. Yeah, not yet. Next season.
Um, but Shiro is not technically a servant. He's what's called the counterforce, which is what the they call it the throne of heroes, where all the like servants are all everybody who can possibly be a servant is stored in what they call the throne of heroes. Basically, that recruits Shiro as a person of the counterforce, which is basically there to like stop the evils of humanity. So So basically, he gets recruited to that, and he goes to like all different like points in time and whatnot. And he's basically there to act as like he's basically the universe's counterbalance. So if anything's like out of whack, like if somebody's doing something that like goes against like the balance of the world, he basically is there to like stop that from happening and to like reset the balance. So he gets summoned for some reason that like doesn't really make a whole lot of. I'm still unclear of like why he got summoned in the first place, but that's why he shows up as
But
Archer.
like he doesn't look old as the red guy.
No, well, he's not. Well, when you're a servant, it really doesn't. It you're when you're a servant, you're basically summoned at like the peak of your existence.
Because all
So
I'm
that's
saying is
basically like
this:
him as an adult is like the peak
I
of like.
would recognize myself as an adult when I was a teenager.
Yeah, I don't get that. His art
Because
style's changed.
you're not
It's.
that much older.
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense because his face is like all changed. But
Yeah,
when he finds out it is Shiro, like when it's revealed like in this movie and in Unlimited Blade Works, like that he is Shiro, they like change his art style back to like it actually looks like Shiro's face. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
that's lame.
It's very strange.
That's lame.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it's basically there so they can have the mystery, and it
Yeah,
doesn't like he doesn't immediately show up, and you're like, oh, that's just me as an adult.
but he's like working with like some girl, right?
Yeah,
He's
the
like some
one of the
girl
main
from
girls.
some girl familiar or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I'd rather watch Metabots. That's kind of similar.
but back to Heaven's Feel. I don't want to. I actually don't want to get too much into it because, especially with Heaven's Feel, like this route of the story is like much more about like the lore of like fate and like the Holy Grail War and like why the Grail War is like fought and whatnot and like why it came into being and stuff like that. Especially in the last movie that I just watched last night, which just came out. The third part just came out.
Oh,
It
okay.
gets so I also don't want to get into it for spoiler reasons for anybody who hasn't seen it. But it digs a lot into like why this Grail War happened and like why the plot of these series of movies is like so radically different from like the other two routes that were done in anime form and whatnot. And so it's there's a lot to it. But I enjoyed it a lot. Um,
Part of me
I
just feels like
definitely
they're just trying to make money.
I mean they definitely are.
You know, but
I
like it's
mean,
like I personally would not buy something or read something or watch something if it was one of the reasons why I got so turned off to JoJo. It
mm,
was like, okay, you reset the universe. Okay, ugh. Do I want to keep reading?
he doesn't really
And
reset the
with this
universe. They're
being,
all like in like parallel
and
universes, so none of them are like reset.
that's still the same bullshit to me.
Eh,
It's like, hey, everything you just watched for 26 episodes, guess
yeah, but
what?
that's like comics, and we read
I don't
comics.
read alter universe comics.
Yeah, but I mean, you read like New 52 and stuff like that. That's basically world
That's
resetting
universe
stuff.
rebooting shit. But also, it's like it's not the same character, and they're not explaining to me like, oh, hey, by the way, you spent years reading Batman, so guess what? But I know comic book history, so guess what? I know what's gonna happen within 2 years. Exactly what happened. They revert back, right? Or there's some mystery shadow character that's playing and removing shit. But like,
Mm,
if there's this in this, I don't read light novels or watch light novel stuff usually. So
hmm
to me, this is like the only light novel thing I kind of watched was Monogatari. I only watched the first season,
hmm
and that was not like this. And so
No.
like, if there's pathways, whatever, I will get mentally tired of trying to be like, okay, where are we at? In which tree branch are we in? Do they tell me where I'm at and the story? Like that
Well,
stuff to me
each one
bothers me.
is does a pretty good job of setting up, time wise, like where you're at and like what universe they're in. You normally with stories, each takes place in kind of like their own universe
Uh huh.
storytelling arc, and really the only thing that's kind of shared most of the time is just like the basis of like sermon summoning and magic systems and stuff like that. So there's
Because
really
like
not
to
like
me
a
the
bunch of different
concept
characters.
of the war thing to me sounds cool. Cool. That sounds super cool.
Yeah, it's super rad. That's
But
why I've fallen in love with it.
if the common question is where do I start with something, automatically from a storytelling perspective on my end, somewhere along the line it got too convoluted.
I think the problem that a lot of people have with that is specifically when you're talking about like Fate Stay Night, which is normally where you start because it
Mm-hmm.
really gives you like the best introduction to the Holy
That was the
Grail
first
and
anime,
stuff like
right?
that. And it was the first one that was animated and stuff like that. And it was the first visual novel that was made, so it's really kind of like the traditional starting point. I think the problem that a lot of people have with where to start with it is, first of all, the original anime that was done for the first route, which is the route that each route is basically like, his love relationship with like one of the other main girls. So the first route was
Oh, that's
him.
that's what it is.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, okay. See that I had no
So
idea.
yeah, so the first route that was animated was basically him being in love with his servant Saber, who basically ends up being incarnated as a real person.
Okay.
But that anime is terrible. So
Okay.
even though it's technically the first one, people say don't watch it because it's bad.
Right.
That's where the
Right.
famous line of like, you probably heard it, where it's like Shiro says the line of like, people die if you kill them. Like that's where that line
No,
fucking comes
that's
from.
fucking.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
terrible line.
Okay. Yeah.
So that anime is bad. But I think reasons why people usually people flip flop between telling you to start with Fate or Unlimited Blade Works, and the reason
Hmm.
that people flip flop so much is, even though Fate
Please
Zero
tell
is
me that's his final attack, please.
Unlimited Blade Works,
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like his ultimate attack.
Because you never
It's super
watched
sick
you
looking.
never watched Soul Eater, did you?
I never finished it. No.
There's a samurai character in that show who
Yeah, I
has
never finished that.
like a box full of samurai swords, and his attack he'll throw them in the air, and then it's probably honestly I think I've seen the samurai attack in this or the sword attack in the show. So tell me if I'm
You
wrong.
probably have.
But like there's like a barren wasteland of swords.
Yeah, it's Baron Wasteland of Swords. He could I mean, basically, his magic is he can like copy anything, and so his like ultimate attack is like he just copies a bunch of swords, like different swords from like a bunch of historical
Yeah.
characters, and whatnot, and just like throws them at people.
So in Soul Eater, he has a bunch of samurai swords, and they're all like cheap swords. And he just
Yeah.
throws them across like the battlefield, and he
Hmm.
just like comes at you and grabs all these different swords and hits you with them,
Okay.
which is honestly reminds me of Advent Children. Did you ever
Hmm.
watch Advent Children?
No, I didn't watch
Well,
that.
like Cloud's Buster sword is like five different swords, and when he's
What?
fighting Sephiroth, he breaks it apart into all the little pieces, and they're floating in the sky. And like there's like a bunch of like anime slashes at Sephiroth and grabs one sword and then slashes another one, and then all that kind
Oh
of
my
shit.
god.
Yeah,
I mean, that sounds dope, but
it's not, but it's
it's not.
okay. I don't know because he leaves Zack's sword at the end of
Um.
Final Fantasy VII or whatever the fuck happens where he like puts it in the ground or whatever.
Right.
Um, so Unlimited Blade Works is the attack, which is a cool name for an attack.
It's a dope name for
It's a
attack, and
cool
he's
name
got
for
a
an
whole
attack.
chant that he does when he like gets into the world, and it's super sick. I love hearing it. But I mean, I think the reason that a lot of people flip flop between those is because even though Fate Zero is technically a prequel, there's a lot of stuff that happens in that like there's a lot of crisscross between both series, and I think that's why people have a hard time deciding where people should watch, because there's
Right.
things that happen in both series
Mm-hmm.
that you understand better if you have context watching the other one, and
Right.
so
Right.
it's
Right.
hard to like judge. But for me, I just started with Fate Zero, because the stuff that you get context for with watching Unlimited Blade Works by watching that is like not super big as compared to like if you watch Fate Zero and then watch Unlimited Blade Works. So that
Gotcha.
was the order I did. It works for me, and I understand Fate all right. So,
Right. Right. Cool.
but yeah, I watch those movies. They're great. If you have opportunity, uh, don't watch them unless you've watched Fate Zero and Unlimited Blade Works, because you won't know what's really going on. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Especially with like these movies, because they kind of get to, especially in Unlimited Blade Works, they kind of like set up like who each of the like partner duos are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in this, they kind of don't, because they basically just assume that you've watched Unlimited Blade
Right.
Works. So the first movie is like the title sequence is just like everybody summoning and they're just skipping past all of it. And I was like,
Gotcha.
that'd be cool to see on the big screen, but like I get it. Like if you've already watched Unlimited Blade Works, it'd be just like rehashing stuff that like you've already
Right.
seen. So, but yeah,
Okay. That's cool.
yeah,
Well,
that was the last big thing that I watched. So,
oh, okay. I don't have much. This week was a slow week for me
mm,
because I only worked 3 days this week. That I've been off the last couple days.
okay.
And you think that I would take that time to do something, and all I did was drink beer. I drink a bunch of Asian beer,
There you go.
I'll put that first. Actually, that's the first thing I did this week.
There you
Was
go.
I drank a beer called Tiger.
Ooh.
I have,
Orion.
I have an empty bottle right here.
Dude, that looks pretty dope.
It looks rad, right?
I
Never.
found I found a new hard seltzer at Target that I bought. From Tejas called
Oh.
Ranch Water, which
Oh, that
sounds
sounds
gross,
terrible. Yeah.
but it tasted pretty good. So,
But this beer is owned. It's owned now by Heineken,
oh,
and it tastes like Heineken, and
okay,
it's pretty good. The art's cool. And then I also went and I bought two more Asian beers. This is a Japanese beer called Orion,
that's a dope can. I
and
like that.
it's yeah, it's a super crisp lager. It's really good, mild, middle of the road. And then I bought another really popular Asian beer that I see in so many Chinese movies, like crime movies. It's called Sing Tao.
Hmm.
Pretty good, middle of the
Okay.
road, green bottle lager. These are all lagers,
Okay.
and they're all good beers. And that's my favorite kind of beer besides IPAs. These are
Yeah.
super easy drinking beer. Um, and yeah, that's the first thing I did was buy a bunch of the 6 packs, and I've been
Okay.
drinking those all week.
Where did you find the six packs?
So Total Wine and or I have a local place
Okay.
called used to be called Bob's. Now it's
Okay.
owned by a chain called Bottles, and it's like a big import section of
Okay.
beer. So if you want to try them, go to a local uh, alcohol store. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know the Florida laws. Do you can you is there are the laws there separate or like can you know here you have to have them in two separate sections.
I
You
think
know
in
liquor and beer.
here, I know they have just liquor stores. I haven't been to a Total Line wine yet, so I don't know if they have to
Okay.
have them in like a separate
Separate thing.
section or not.
Well, look for if you want to try them. I've enjoyed all three of those beers.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the traditional Japanese ones like Kirin and Sapporo are good too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm drinking those, and then also I've been um, watching a lot of wrestling still.
Ooh. Okay.
Ton of WWE, WCW old pay per views. Been doing that a lot. The thing in particular I want to talk about just I've been watching a lot of shit.
Okay.
Tomorrow is Survivor Series, and it's supposed to be the Undertaker's final retirement.
I saw he was on Hot Ones, which was
He
weird to me.
was, yeah, because he finally broke kayfabe.
Did he
I
really?
mean,
Oh my
everyone's
god.
known. Everyone, it's hard
Yeah.
because the Undertaker. We all know he's not dead, so
Right.
it's not like he's already broken kayfabe.
Yeah.
You know, and no one thought he was actually dead.
Mm-hmm.
But so he for 30 years he never talked. He never did interviews. He never talked about
Right.
outside of the business. He was very old school. But since he's retiring, the last year he's been really like loosening up and talking about stuff. He's been on the Stone
Right.
Cold podcast on the network,
Mm-hmm.
Hot Ones yesterday. He's been doing a lot of stuff. He had the documentary on the network too called The Last Ride, which
Mm-hmm.
as a camera crew follows him around for the last 3 years. It just kind of films his life,
Damn.
and it films him like going through like some trash of some trash matches. Like his
No.
last
Yeah.
couple matches have been like
Yeah, they're not good.
ass, and they
I
follow
feel like the
him.
last time I saw like a good match with him was like him versus Shawn Michaels.
That's what he says too.
Yeah.
That's
Like that
what
was
he
like the
says as
last one that
well.
I saw. I was like, damn, that was a good match.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and he also agrees with that pretty much because the documentary it shows him like his ups and downs of him training, how his body is, how he's beat up, he's old, he's 55 or some shit like that, he's
No.
old as fuck, um, and he's a big guy, so it's not like no when old guys are also big as fuck, like they like their bodies break down even more. He hit bad
Yeah.
hips, and they show him like after backstage at WrestleManias and how he's feeling and all this kind of shit, and so they show him. They don't shy away from the bad matches. They show his reaction,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a scene where it's right after he had a match. He had a WrestleMania match with Roman Reigns, and the match was just like ass. Like I
Yeah.
can't. It was terrible. He had no energy. He was gassed out. He couldn't lift Roman Reigns. He couldn't do anything. It was terrible looking.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the worst matches I've seen ever.
Yeah.
And he's at home with his wife like a couple weeks later or
He's
something.
married to
Or
Michelle McCool, right?
yeah, he's married to Michelle McCool. And he's a couple weeks later. He's watching it back. He hasn't seen it yet. And
Yeah.
you can see, and the camera zoomed in on his eyes, and you can tell he's like saying all this stuff about how like I feel so bad that I did this to him, like to Roman Reigns.
Mm-hmm.
He probably look at me being like, "What the fuck's this old man? Who the fuck were you?" And his
Mm.
wife's like, "No, he doesn't think that." He does right here. He does all this shit right, and then it cuts to like a year later where he's like at WrestleMania talking to Roman Reigns like, "Hey man, I'm so sorry for last year," and he's like, "No man, don't worry about it." Right? All this
Mm.
shit. So it's like not only like they're giving you Undertaker real life for the first
Mm.
time, but they're also giving you like a man who's about to retire.
Yeah.
It's like a lot at one time, which is not it's not bad by any means. It's really good, but
Mm.
it's more like usually we break kayfabe earlier on.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna watch Austin Creed play video games. Oh
Yeah.
man, oh right. Here's like, hey, by the way, 30 years are gone. He's an old man. He's retiring. He's sad. Like,
Yeah.
here's where we break kayfabe at.
Yeah.
But I've been watching that, and I'm not even. I have never been a Taker fan. I have never liked him.
I liked him a little bit when I was like younger, but it was like I don't know. I think it was probably after that match with Shawn Michaels because I think he tried it. It was like during his stuff with Triple H. I was just like, it's not the same anymore.
Mm. No, I get that. I never liked him as a kid either. I never really liked big guys, even
Hmm.
though he was very athletic back in the day.
Yeah.
Never cared for his move set. Never cared because big guys just overpower. That's kind of like the
Yeah.
style. I always
He had the
preferred.
one interesting move that I like, which is he has the old school, but that's really just like he gets up on the top
Yeah,
rope and then he just hits your arm. And he's
yeah,
like, eh.
or like hits the back of your
Like
neck.
athleticism is cool that he's able to
Oh yeah,
like, balance on the top rope, but like
he used to be able to do like fucking like
damage wise, it's like it's not doing much.
he used to be able to do like somersault over the top ropes.
Yeah.
He's a very athletic, agile guy for a guy who's like 6'8" or whatever the fuck he is.
Yeah.
But just style, never cared about it. I always preferred Kane when I was a
Hmm.
kid. Um, Even now, I prefer Kane. I prefer Kane's costume. I prefer the gimmick. You know, um, and when they worked together, I thought it was really cool when they were tag teams.
Brothers of Destruction, man.
And they have a documentary interview about that as well, where Kane interviews Undertaker, and they talk about them meeting and whatever.
Hmm.
So it's coming down to the last couple days of Undertaker his career. We'll see
Hmm.
if he actually stays retired. Um,
I hope so, man. It's just like at this point, it's just like
it's sad.
it's like watching Rick. It was like back when watching
Hmm.
Ric Flair. It's just like
Yeah.
it's not fun.
I think also the worst thing with Ric Flair is that he was on drugs.
Yeah.
At least Taker's clean.
Yeah.
Ric Flair was like watching a car crash every week
Yeah.
because he was always high and on drugs all the time
Yeah.
at 60 years old. I mean, like his last match was he was 55.
Yeah.
That's too old.
Yeah.
You didn't have it anymore.
No.
Um, so Undertaker, I think he should have retired 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion, obviously. But as someone who's never really cared for him, who fucking cares? You're taking up 10 minutes in the card, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll watch some. I'll just watch something else. So,
Yeah.
been watching a lot of wrestling, including some of that. And then the one thing I wanted to talk about the most was I've been waiting for this documentary to come out the last couple months, and it came out on Tuesday, I believe, and it's called The Orange Years. And it's a
Hmm.
documentary about Nickelodeon and
Oh.
like early '90s Nickelodeon up until like the late '90s Nickelodeon. And it's a documentary, and it's all positive, very happy-go-lucky documentary, and it
Okay.
interviews a bunch of people who helped make Nickelodeon what it was.
Butch Hartman, I guess.
No,
Oh, earlier than that.
earlier. So like late '80s or '90s type stuff. So they interviewed the creator of all the hosts of like Nick Arcade, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a very middle of the road documentary in terms of rating. It's not necessarily super well done. I was expecting a lot more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not nostalgic enough to me because I'm not 30.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I was like 35, it would mean a lot more. But since
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 35, the documentary is like 5 years too early.
Yeah.
Because they mentioned shows that I did grow up on. They mentioned like all that and Hey Arnold and
Mm-hmm.
Doug and all those things that were reran.
Mm-hmm.
But shows like you can't do that on television. I'm too young for that. Um, Obviously they mentioned like Gas and Nick Cage, which we all watched,
Mm-hmm.
and Legends of the Hidden Temple and things that we watched, but like the Butch Hartman stuff and those all that stuff was later.
Yeah.
And to me, that was more so like that his stuff was definitely more of like the childhood stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, like and then like Alex Mack, like that's too early for me. I know what it is, but it's too
Hmm.
early for me.
Yeah.
Um, Now they did, My Cousin Skeeter
Ooh.
all day, or
All day.
Journey of Alex Strange all day,
Hmm.
100 Deeds all day. But they did like stuff like Salute Your Shorts.
I don't even know
I
that.
never watched that. Some camp
No.
show. Pete and Pete. I mean, I've seen it, but
Never heard of that. That
that's
sounds like a bad ripoff of Ed and Eddie.
Pete and Pete's about two friends named Pete.
There you
Um,
go.
P
There
and
you go, right
Pete,
there.
and they interview a lot of the a lot of the cast, and it's all like positive. Even though a couple interviews, they interviewed um, Keenan
Mm,
about all that and about Keenan and Kel,
right.
and he didn't seem like he wanted to be there, man. He was giving like really short, boring answers.
I feel like he's probably one of the ones where he probably felt like he was like too good for that because now he's on like SNL and all that shit. Even though I don't think he's that good on SNL, but
I don't know, man. People were like they. I was listening to an interview with the directors,
I
and they're
always
like,
like Kel more anyways. Kel was funnier.
he was way happier to be on the documentary.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more so like just in real life, he's not like that,
Yeah.
outgoing. Maybe
Hmm.
between the two of them, because he really is more like the quieter one of the two.
Yeah.
So maybe he really likes to do his work, but then in real life he's like very reserved. I don't know.
Maybe.
Um, but it was fine. If 5 out of 10, two point
Hmm.
five out of five, I guess. I don't know. Um, I saw a review that was like complaining that
Mm.
they didn't talk about the John Kay, who's the creator of Ren and Stimpy.
Hmm.
They're like they mentioned Ren and Stimpy. They don't talk about any of the drama that happened with him being a sexual predator.
Hmm.
And I was thinking like, yeah, they did a whole documentary about that 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You can watch that. It's fine. It's good as it is. So that's that. And I didn't really
Yeah.
care too much for it, and I paid $5 to rent it,
Mm.
and I don't pay for stuff very often.
No, I don't. Really, I don't
But
either.
in about 6 days, we get to watch. I think 6 days. A documentary comes out called Insert Coin, which is the Midway documentary.
Ooh.
Comes out in the 27th, I believe.
What's it gonna be on?
It's gonna be on pre-order. You can rent it and stuff.
Okay.
Amazon and all that kind of iTunes and all that kind of shit.
Damn.
And I'm
I
expecting
dig
this
it.
one to be good because I messaged the guy who made the movie. He's like, "Hey, when can I rent this?" He's like, "Later this month, man." I go, "Okay."
Okay.
And then they announced it finally. Like 2 days later, they announced the trailer with like, "Hey, it's coming out this month or whatever."
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot of shit that Midway made that I'm expecting.
Yeah.
And the guy, I'm expecting a lot of this documentary.
Hmm.
I had high hopes for the Orange Years, and it didn't deliver. But
Mm.
I have high hopes for Insert Coin, and it better deliver because I had high hopes for Console Wars, and when I watched it, I was like, okay.
I don't remember Console Wars.
I never mentioned it on the podcast, but I watched
I don't
it.
know if I watched that. I don't think
Um,
I did.
well, it came out after the one we did watch on Netflix.
Yeah, I didn't even finish that one.
Yeah, it came out after, and it was way better.
Mm,
It was
okay.
way better. Um, so that is all I did this week except for watch Oceans 1 and 2.
Ooh.
And I've talked about Oceans in this podcast like fucking 7 times.
Yeah.
I think that's everything I did. Wrestling, Orange Years. Last thing. Oh my god, last thing.
Hmm.
Last thing I did was on Tuesday. A book biography came out by the Young Bucks. It's their
Ooh.
book called "Killing the Business."
Okay.
Killing the Business from the Backyard to the Big League, I think is what it's called. And it's $15. I bought it on ebook. Again, I don't very often buy books.
Yeah.
And it's about their history, about their
Hmm.
lives from growing up in California to becoming, from training to pro wrestling to
AEW.
TNA to the very beginning of AEW.
Yeah.
Just like their rise. And, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
I
$15 fine.
no, definitely not.
Okay.
Um, The writing is kind of poor.
Mm.
Um,
Did
there's a
they
lot.
write it themselves?
I think they wrote themselves the alternate
Okay.
chapters, but also
Mm.
you would assume that this one came in there and helped them,
Yeah.
spruce up all kinds of stuff. Um, it's interesting to hear the journey of how they go from being like really broke to like being like
Right.
very wealthy, and that to
Hmm.
me is that to me is interesting. Um, and they mentioned some wrestling stuff here and there. They obviously like in terms of like technique or storytelling or whatever, which is the best part I think. But the overall, it kind of made me like them less.
Damn, really?
Yeah, because like I I've been a huge fan for a long time since they kind of really broke big in like 2014, 2015. I right when I was getting
Hmm.
back into wrestling was kind of right when they were like fucking like skyrocketing, which is when I
Right.
just perfect timing, Right when Kenny Omega was getting really big was when they were getting really big, and that's when I got back into wrestling because of that.
Hmm.
So like I've been a fan for a long time now, I guess, but a lot of people on like Reddit and the community are like, yeah, they're kind of cocky, they're kind of dickheads, and some people say they're really
Mm.
nice. I've seen both. I've seen both things, but there's parts in the book where I'm like, yeah, y'all kind of seem like there's parts of
Mm.
their stories where I'm like, you're the bad guy here, like you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
There's a part where and they try to explain it as they've been told what to do and how to work their characters for a long time, and it was constantly like failing or they didn't like it. So they're going to go out there and do what they wanted to do and say fuck the rules, which a lot of people who are old school wrestling people say you guys are killing the business, which is what their phrase is,
Hmm.
which I don't personally care about. But like they went into a match supposed to be heels because they're the Young Bucks, and the
Hmm.
crowd was super hot for them, and the people they're tagging against were like people that they were friendly with, and they're like, "Hey, let's turn this crowd because we're the baby faces, you're the heels," and they're like, "No, fuck that. We're
Mm.
gonna do what we want to do. We're tired of doing whatever." And part of me is like, I'm not a wrestler, so I don't know that new. They talk about the nuances, and I've heard stories of the unwritten traditions, but
Hmm.
I'm no wrestler, so I can't comment on like if that's like, oh yeah, let's just do that because you're big, right? But like I read that stuff like that, and I'm like, that's kind of shitty. Like that's
Mm.
you're fucking with their money too. Like
Hmm.
if you gotta play your role, that's like being like it's like with the Wolf Pack and the Click in the '90s,
Hmm.
where it's like Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash are controlling everything, and then Scott Hall and Kevin Nash move to WCW, and they're just making all the decisions.
Mm.
And like you're just breaking the business. You're not even like letting anyone grow. You're not working for anybody. You're working for yourselves. And
Mm.
it's like you're not the good guys here. I love Razor and Scott Hall are some of my favorite. Like they're my favorite wrestlers of all time. I'm saying that separately because there's two different characters, obviously. But like
Right.
in my top five, Razor is there. But it's not any sort of like stretch in my mind that he is like did some really dickish shit for
Hmm.
years when he was a top guy. And some of the stuff that the Young Bucks talk about, I'm like, man,
Well, that's kind of the complaints that people had about like Hulk Hogan, like, right?
oh,
Where he wouldn't
absolutely.
he wouldn't let anybody get over
He
on
wouldn't let
him.
anyone get over on him.
Yeah.
Um, it's the same thing with like, it goes back to like again, it's like tradition where it's like, okay, well, Bret Hart isn't going to let Shawn Michaels get over on him because he's leaving.
Hmm.
He's want to look weak because he hates Shawn Michaels. It's like, yeah, do
Hmm.
your job. Like, yeah,
Mm.
they screwed you because you didn't do your job. Like, you're leaving. Drop the
Yeah.
belt. Like this stuff like that.
Hmm.
So it's again, I'm not a wrestler, so I'm not like talking from experience, but like just on a personal level, you're killing the business, but at the same time, like who fucking cares? Like because people are too smart nowadays to like even this to think that like it matters.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a strand of Jim Cornette fans who I mentioned last week, so old school guy who
Hmm.
look at the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, or in Jim Cornette's words, Kenny Olivier and Pie Face and Balding Buck or something
Jeez. Tough words from Jim
because
Cornette.
because one of the Young Bucks is balding.
Is he?
That's why he wears the bandana, because his
Uh,
hairline's going back. Um, and they look at their work as he looks at their work as like just spot fest. Just it's so here. Okay, for a quick rundown for you to
mhm.
catch up to why Jim Cornette, who's a famous wrestling guy,
Yeah.
and people who are his same kind of view think that young Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are three of the biggest reasons why wrestling is like progressing down this evil pathway or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and some of the big reasons are killing the business, breaking kayfabe all the time,
Mhm.
breaking tradition, the too many false finishes, the destruction of the finisher, which means
Mhm.
that they don't matter anymore because you can do
Right.
5 in a match, 10 in a match, doesn't matter. Spot
Mhm.
fest, really bad in ring psychology, and breaking tradition of like gimmick infringement, which is like using other people's finishing moves and like
Mm.
stuff like that. So those are some of the big reasons why he really doesn't like those guys.
So he says that
Um,
Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks they like do all those things basically.
they do all those things, yeah.
Okay.
Like, cause Kenny Omega wrestled a little girl. That's
He
like that.
did.
Yeah, like it was like a comedy match when he used to work in GDT, which is like a Japanese
Uh.
comedy promotion. And
Mhm.
he like whether can't look past that or whatever it is, but he's like, yeah, that's like you're ruining the business by making
Mhm.
it all goofy as fuck. And
Yeah.
then the Young Bucks break kayfabe, break tradition, all this kind of stuff. They do
Well,
too
their
many
whole
super
YouTube
kicks.
channel is basically breaking kayfabe, right?
Right,
Yeah.
they do too many super kicks, and they talk, that was a big joke. They talk about that in the book as well. Like everyone's like, you guys do too many super kicks. You remove it's a finishing move that you guys removed the quality, the impact of it or whatever. Um, so there's like this whole like wave of two different thinking of pro wrestling, which is like
Mhm.
there's the traditionalist who like wants to be more
Mhm.
reserved, old school, and there's the guys and girls who are like up to date, smart marks who are like don't care about, who don't mind the false finishes that are like 10 times or whatever because like they like the I don't fucking know.
I don't know why. I mean, I get some of what Jim Cornette's talking about, especially with like false finishes, because for me, it's just like I don't know. I liked it back to the point where it was like Randy Orton did an RKO and that's the end of the match.
Yeah,
That really doesn't happen a lot anymore.
yeah, there are very few protected moves still, and like Kenny
Yeah.
Omega's One Winged Angel is protected still.
Hmm.
Right? And I like that. I think there are some moves that should be protected.
Yeah.
Finishing moves are some of them.
Yeah.
Or most of them, obviously. And I'm in this as I get older and watch more world wrestling around the world. Like when I
Hmm.
was just watching New Japan and just watching WWE,
Hmm.
um, I was all about Young Buck style wrestling. Like I
Right.
loved the lucha inspired spot fests,
Hmm.
just super kick, all this kind of shit. I love that. But then, like I think I mentioned last week, everyone does that now.
Yeah.
So like you watch Impact or Ring of Honor or All Japan Pro Wrestling or New Japan, and they're all kind of having the same product. To
Hmm.
where when I go back to WWE, like the main roster stuff, like Raw and SmackDown, while 90% of the show fucking sucks,
Yeah.
you've got a guy like Randy Orton who are wrestling old school wrestling.
Yeah.
And I can't find that really. It's hard for me to find that anywhere else because
Hmm.
everyone who's doing front flips and back flips and somersaults and lion salts and
Hmm.
it the big cornet thing that I see, and even on Reddit and on Instagram, and people comment on wrestling posts that I like on pages that I follow, is that it's choreographed. It's too
Hmm.
choreographed. Like
Hmm.
watching two lucha guys go at it, it looks beautiful, but it's like
Yeah.
dancing.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a fight. It's not like a brawl. So it goes back to that line of like, are we trying to be more pro sports here
Hmm.
with the presentation, or are we going more like artistic theater? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like if you watch a long spot or a sequence in like a Young Bucks match or anyone who does a lot of flippy flips,
Hmm.
it looks great and it's super athletic and we're not doubting that. But it's a bunch of like you're gonna backflip and I'm gonna grab you and hip toss you and then you're gonna reverse me and bounce off the ropes and you're gonna super kick but you're gonna miss and I'm like all that is cool,
Yeah.
but it's a sequence and you can tell we're working together.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I watch like, you know, I'm trying to think of someone that you would know, like just say like an old '80s like Ric Flair match. Like we're
Yeah.
working together, but if it's Rick versus Ricky Steamboat, like we're brawling, we're going at
Yeah.
it. You know, we're taking our time, we're methodical, we're going for an hour. And it's not a
Mm-hmm.
spot fest. We're just grinding and we're getting the audience to simmer and we're raising
Mm-hmm.
it. So it's two different styles of wrestling. And as I'm getting older, I'm honestly going back to watching that
Yeah.
style where I'm over when Jeff Hardy was the only guy doing swantons.
Yeah.
It's like holy shit, dude, he's doing a
But
fucking
now
swanton.
everybody who's a high
Everyone can
flyers.
do a 540
Yeah.
splash. Everyone when RVD and Eddie were the only guys who were doing huge frog
That
splashes.
was that was the thing that I was going to bring up is that I think a lot of these moves were traditional finishers have just been like normalized at this point where they're not even seen as like finishing moves anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, you think of like Sprott, Fox Splash, or like I remember one of the guys that always sticks out in my mind was like what was his name? His name wasn't Evan. Was it Evan Bourne?
Yeah,
Or something like that, where he had the shooting star press.
yeah,
I was like,
Matt
that's
Sydal.
cool, but that's also a move where it's basically a frog splash, but he holds his legs.
Yeah,
And it's like I've seen a bunch of other people do
he
that.
just got signed to AEW.
Yeah,
So listen, we have another guy who's a
yeah,
cruiserweight weight guy
hmm,
who's a flyer.
yeah,
And when everyone is flying,
yeah.
it lessens the impact. And then they can't. They're in AEW
It's
particularly.
weird when like Cody Rhodes in the thing is like the traditional brawler of your brand.
Yes, and he's the only guy really. Him, Brian Cage, who's a really big guy, who's really
Yeah.
great. Lance Archer, who's also really great.
Hmm.
Dustin, obviously, Gold Dust. Those are
Yeah.
the guys who are really kind of the only ones who are based in traditional wrestling. Even though Brian Cage does a lot of flippy shit too, he's really good.
Yeah.
But when you have a lot of cruiserweight guys, smaller dudes, who are doing the flippy shit,
Hmm.
or a lot of like the New Japan style false finishes, the indie
Yeah.
style of all the reversals, like they're really cool when you see it one time
Yeah.
or two. But not every match needs to have
Yeah.
a 4 minute sequence of like reversing into your finisher,
Reverse, reverse, reverse.
or
Yeah.
just like the idea like again like the Young Bucks killed their own finish by having so many super kicks, and that's like their and people like that because they're being like smart about the business. They're like, oh, you know. And then they talk about it in the book where they're like, people said doing too many super kicks. Well, fuck it, we're gonna do so many super kicks, right? So the
Hmm.
fans know that we're like inside of the joke, like we're on the joke with them. And
Hmm.
I get that, and I think that's
I get
smart.
that
But at
aspect
the
of it,
same
but
time, Shawn Michaels, Sweet Chin Music, like never once do I look at a Young Buck super kick and go, that's a Sweet Chin Music, because
yeah.
Sweet Chin Music was so fucking built up
Yeah.
that like he only did it when it was time to finish.
Yeah.
Like he did the fucking stomp and the bump and bump and all that
He did the
shit.
stomp, and if it didn't work, it was shocking.
Right, and he'll do it again. But like he
Yeah.
worked for it. Um and now it's like you just throw out moves. And obviously there's a progression because back in the day, DDT was a finisher. And now it's
Yeah.
not. And I understand there has to be progression on that stuff, and I'm fine with that. There's just a point where it's kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
how much do we do before we really are killing the business?
Yeah.
Which is
I get you there.
the point of the title of the book.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Getting back to a part that's brought up in the book, because it's been stuck in my mind for a while. So you brought up the fact that they were in a match, and I assume that I think if I'm understanding the story correct, the Young Bucks were the heels in the
Yeah,
match. Their opponents were the baby faces.
yeah,
But the crowd basically saw them as baby faces.
yeah.
So they basically wanted to like change the change the storyline of the match, essentially.
Well, so, and I'm paraphrasing the book here. So they come out, crowd
Hmm.
super duper hot,
Hmm.
and they're supposed to work. The people they're going against are the baby face, so they want to turn the crowd. So
Right.
the other team tells the ref, "Hey, tell Matt and Nick, we want to turn the crowd, right?" And the ref comes over to them, and they're like, "Fuck that, no."
Yeah.
So they go back over to the other team, and they're like, "Fuck, man, what the hell?" So they just work the match, whatever they're doing, because you know you would try to change move sets, you would try to change what you do in how you call the match to help turn the crowd to help be in favor of the baby faces,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's a certain level, obviously, where it doesn't matter what you do because Stone Cold's always going to be a baby face no matter how heelish he is because the crowd loves him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like maybe it wouldn't even work, but there's the idea of them being like, we're not even gonna try.
So their opponents didn't want to try, or the Young
The
Bucks
Young
didn't
Bucks
want to
didn't
try.
want to try.
Oh,
So
okay.
again,
So
they're
so
they're
that was the part that confused
yeah,
me.
they're booked in the match to be heels, and the
Right.
whole point of wrestling is that the crowd wants to support the hero.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the team that they're wrestling was like, hey guys, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, let's
Yeah.
turn the crowd, and they're like, no,
Yeah.
we're not
So
going to.
that's so that's more fucked up because the way that I was thinking about it, which was going to lead to my question, what was like, I thought it was going to be like Matt and Nick basically were like not going to turn the crown, but I thought, which I guess would have been like even more fucked up, but I thought that they basically said that they were going to like change the storyline in the match and like they
Oh
were just
right,
going to be the baby faces.
right, right,
And
right,
my
right.
question would have been like, I don't know, in that instance, wouldn't you like want to like try to adapt to the crowd? Like if the crowd is super hot for them and like that's
Right.
kind of what the crowd wants to want to see, then like changing the match to like fit what the crowd wants
Right.
instead of giving him what the crowd doesn't want. Where you've got a thing where you've got everybody hates Roman Reigns and you've got the
Yeah.
WWE trying to pump up Roman Reigns as a babyface. And now they finally done good and just like turned him into a heel, which they should have done like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
And
now everybody loves him because he's a heel and he's great as a heel.
right, and Drew McIntyre is great as a better who's wrestling as a better babyface.
Yeah.
But it's and there's a lot of the part of the book where I feel bad for them because like this life's tough and they're working hard trying to make this dream happen and
Yeah.
they're great at what they do and they're great at marketing and they're great at selling stuff and they're great at advertising all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It kills the business for
Mm-hmm.
sure. As someone who's not a wrestler, I'm gonna say that again with grain of salt, but it kills the business because there's a part of mystique I like about the wrestling business that's still hidden away. But obviously, people want to know more about the business. That's why they read books. That's why I read the books. I want to read. I want to know more about it.
Right.
Um, I think that the way that wrestling is progressing, it's
Mm-hmm.
becoming to where I'm having to revert back to old shit because I don't care personally of seeing. You can do a false finish and I'm fine with it, but like it
Mm-hmm.
has to like matter.
Right.
Like it has to matter. Like
Mm-hmm.
Stone Cold giving two stunners has to matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Two pedigrees, it has to matter. Two
Yeah.
tombstones have to matter. You know, but like if we're just giving out, imagine like fucking Kurt Angle slams you beginning of the match, you kick out on a one count. Okay, so he gives you five more Angle slams. If you're not the Big Show, I don't fucking care.
Wasn't that basically Brock Lesnar where he just F5s people and then
Yeah,
somebody kicks out and he just keeps
right.
F5ing
And
F5ing
like
them
there's
until
a
they
point where
finally
like
don't?
you're not protecting the move, you know, and like there's a point where you can argue that it's fine because there's a style of wrestling
Mm-hmm.
and it was famous in all Japan pro wrestling, and it's called the King's Road or the Royal Road.
Hmm.
Okay, and I'm not trying to get too into Japanese wrestling with you, but I apologize. But
It's all right.
it's a style,
Yeah.
it's a storytelling style. So there's two different types of Japanese wrestling historically. Like they also a bunch now, but two big ones. There's
Mm-hmm.
strong style,
Right.
and there's the King's Road or Royal
Okay.
Road. Strong style's all shoot based wrestling, martial arts, kicks, elbows,
Mm-hmm.
all that kind of shit. New Japan Pro Wrestling, that's like their style, strong
Mm-hmm.
style. Shinsuke Nakamura,
Yeah.
Kenta, all that kind of Shibata, all these people. All Japan Pro Wrestling is based on American Southern wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
slower power moves.
Mm-hmm.
In ring psychology. That's where it kind of because they had a bunch of Americans who were Southern come over there and work a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So all Japan used to be part of this no Southern Territories type wrestling. So the King's Road, their style is okay. If you and I wrestle Zach right now,
Mm-hmm.
and your finisher, what's your finisher? Give me your finisher.
Let's just do Codebreaker.
A code breaker. Okay, so your finisher is code breaker. We wrestle the first time, you code break me, 1, 2, 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
We wrestle the second time, you code break me, 1, 2, I tap out, I kick out because I
Okay.
faced your move before. So I have anime. I have now
Okay.
gotten stronger to your finisher,
I've adapted to the
right? So
damage. Yeah.
now I hit you with my finisher, which is a brain buster or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? One, two, three. Next time we wrestle, I brain bust you. One, two, you tap or you kick out, right? So we're both
Okay.
gotten stronger. So now you have to make a new move that's stronger than your
Mm.
prior move to beat me. Now, if you wrestle someone else, it's your first time.
Mm-hmm.
Your old finisher still works, but against me, you have to go stronger,
So it's a
right?
constant
It's a
adaptation
constant
and evolution.
adaptation, storytelling way to progress amongst people, right?
Okay.
Now that's cool and all until the '90s, where that progression meant moves were so fucking brutal that
Yeah.
people are getting slammed on their necks
Yeah.
because we can't do a DDT anymore.
Yeah.
We've progressed beyond that. We're
Yeah.
doing Tiger Driver 91, which is to fucking pick you up and I'm gonna slam you in the fucking in the base of your neck.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're doing. So there has to be a progression of finishers. I like that style a lot. I like that style a lot, except for
Mm-hmm.
the whole neck thing.
Yeah.
Right? I like that style so much. And if you want, dude, I want to send you. Oh, I want to send you this fucking Tiger Driver from this really famous wrestler named Masawa,
Mm-hmm.
and he fucking demolishes this. This guy is so old school. He dies in the ring.
Oh my god.
Not in this match, but like years later.
Yeah.
Right? So like, there's a point where like finishers have to progress and not be finishers anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
get it. To wrap up my wrestling point, I'm officially kinda over the Young Bucks.
Yeah. Okay.
And if
I
you
could see
if
that.
Zach, if you read the book, it's a very quick read.
Mm-hmm.
You can read the book and kind of like see for yourself because they're
Mm-hmm.
still really enjoyable and personable, and they work well. But
Mm-hmm.
their style of wrestling is making me not want to watch it because everyone's doing it.
Right.
And it's not
I
their
get
fault
that.
because they're the originator of that style in terms of popular
Just an
culture
oversat.
now.
I mean, it's just what happens in all media, which is the oversaturation of the
Yeah.
thing that's really popular and everybody wants to see, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
adapts it. And now it's probably the point where it's like people are going to start to get bored with it, and it'll fall out again. And then a
Randy
couple of
or
years, it'll
Randy or
probably be brought back.
Randy Orton talks a lot of shit with
Mm-hmm.
AEW and New Japan on Twitter and stuff.
Uh,
Talks a lot of shit, right? He's defending WWE.
right.
To me and for a while I let it go because Randy Orton and he's
Yeah.
cocky, right? He
Yeah.
knows he's great. He knows he's a prodigy.
Mm-hmm.
We all know he's a prodigy.
Third generation, baby.
Right? Third generation, 20 youngest champion. He's 24 years old. He's fucking amazing. We all
Yeah.
know he's a prodigy, and we know he's good and he's fucking in shape and he's 40 something. He's like
He still looks fucking
he talks
amazing.
trash about Kevin Owens all the time, being like, man, Kevin Owens hasn't made. He's smart. He's come in as a fat guy. You can work as a fat guy. All this shit. But like, so he calls it like the slap your leg fest.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they do in New Japan and AEW is like slap your leg. Like, all we're doing is slapping your leg. Just all the time. Super kick, slap your leg, slap your leg, slap your leg, slap your leg. You know, um,
Uh,
because he knows that he works like old school. He works like
yeah.
his dad. He still goes in for the collar and hook.
Mm-hmm.
He's still grappling. He's still doing
Well,
punches and stuff.
the thing that I would say about that is I would assume that Randy Orton is more of the royal road of wrestling. But
Whatever.
I
Yeah.
haven't watched him a long time, but I haven't seen the last time I saw him really progress was when he added a hanging DDT to his arsenal, which was the era of like he
Oh.
also started punting people and then he stopped doing that because I
Yeah.
assume he hurt too many people's necks.
Well,
But
I think what it was with that wasn't really that because that was all camera angles.
that was camera angles, but I also
What it was they didn't want kids to see it on TV because it looked
fair
too
enough.
violent.
God, that was
It looked
that was
too
the dopest
violent.
shit though. That era of like Legend Killer Randy Orton with him and fucking Ted DiBiase and Cody
Yeah.
Rhodes was like, God damn, that was like peak Randy Orton. I love that shit.
Well, and he's super old school style Missouri wrestling, which is
Yeah.
great. I love it. I love it now more so than when I was younger. I got out of wrestling because I wanted more of the lucha,
Yeah.
flashy shit. And now that I've been watching that style for years now, I'm kind of like I'm over it, and I want to go back to just
Yeah.
watching two dudes work.
Mm-hmm.
Not that Kenny Olivier doing
What is the reason behind that? Just because it sounds
I
feminine?
I don't know. I don't know why he calls him Nate because he's French. I don't know
Maybe.
because he's Canadian. He's not
Right.
even French Canadian, he's just Canadian. But like, I don't know. And like, there's something about not Kenny. I love Kenny Omega. No matter what Jim Cornette says about Kenny Omega, I think he's an amazing wrestler. He's
I love Kenny
one
Omega.
of the
He's
best
great.
in the world. Um, but there are definitely critiques. I thought, like, if you asked me 3 years ago about Jim Cornette's critiques on or on like Japanese wrestling or the Young
Mhm.
Bucks or whatever, I'd be like, he's an old ass shitty man. Who
Yeah,
fucking cares? Flash forward 3 years later, I'm almost 30, and I'm like, these guys are
he's
killing
got some
these guys are
points.
killing the business.
Yeah.
you know,
I had a
um,
question. I had another question about that because we talked about like the evolution of finishing moves, and is
sure.
there a point where I feel the evolution comes back around? Because I think, or maybe this is only specifically for him. I don't know if anybody else has done that, but I feel like specifically thinking of like Brock Lesnar, I
Hmm.
feel like he brought the suplex back around to like being a finishing move again, where he does his triple suplex. So I feel like is there kind of a thing where it's like I don't know, maybe somebody like does something to a DDT where DDT becomes more powerful again? Because
Oh
Randy Orton
yeah.
kind of did that with DDT too, or he added the hanging DDT, and that basically became a finisher for
Well,
him.
it's like John Moxley has his finisher move, which is a double hooked DDT,
Yeah.
right? So he double hooks you, he raises you up higher,
Mm-hmm.
and like keeps you in the air, so it looks more like it's a direct impact versus a quick snap.
Mm-hmm.
Like people do a snap DDT really quickly where they hook you
Yeah.
up and they drop you really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Now John Moxley has a double hooked DDT, so there's things you can add to make the move different. Make it
Yeah.
look more powerful. Because I mean Jake the Snake with DDT people, that's his finisher,
Yeah.
and it does not look intense
No.
by any standard. But
Well, it's like Hulk Hogan's finisher is like a leg drop, and that's
yeah,
like the most boring looking thing ever.
well, there's. Did you ever watch? I don't know if you ever did it. If Ben Kissel mentioned it on his podcast or not.
Mm.
But there's a really famous when Hulk Hogan was in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send you a link or something where because Hulk Hogan can work. Like
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize that because he didn't do that in America because he's just a brawler, big guy. But
Yeah.
he was trained by like really great Japanese wrestlers. So like Hulk Hogan was technical. So he
Mm-hmm.
go to Japan, he would put on like Japanese style match.
Mm-hmm.
And you come back to America and punch leg drop, right? So
Yeah.
he knew what made him money.
Yeah.
But like in Japan, there's a match where there's he's wrestling some Japanese guy. I can't remember who it is. And maybe it's Buta. I can't remember. But there's the entry ramp, and
Mm-hmm.
they just run down the whole entry ramp, and just clothesline him. Like it's so fucking goofy. And I think there's a AEW pay per view, I think, or New Japan pay per view where they replicate that. I think it was Cody.
That's
It's like
pretty funny.
it's so fucking stupid. It's funny though, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'd never stop loving wrestling. I still love,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how the business is going in terms of style at
Yeah.
the time. I love wrestling regardless.
Yeah.
I might stop watching it for a little bit, like come back into it, but I have to find new avenues of like the for a while AEW had a big Young Bucks rivalry with the Revival, which are former WWE people. They're called FTR now.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck the rest, fuck the Revival or some whatever the fuck. And they're
Mm-hmm.
old school dudes. Their like gimmick is like no flips, no thrills, just fists or something like that. And they're
Mm-hmm.
old school. They're 80s style, 70s style, and that's like their whole premise.
Yeah.
And watching them wrestle was fucking like amazing. They're
Mm-hmm.
the tag champs for a while. They dropped the belts to the Young Bucks,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're off doing something else, and they do contract stuff or whatever. But watching
Mm-hmm.
them wrestle was amazing because it's like not many people do your style anymore, and
Yeah.
it's so cool now. Now they're the unique ones in a tag world where everyone is doing lucha flips and
Mm-hmm.
penalty kicks and all this kind of stuff. These guys are like punching and brawling,
Yeah.
and it's really refreshing to see that. Which who would
Mm-hmm.
have thought that that's what it's the case? Oh, before my last line of
Mm.
wrestling before we wrap the podcast up
Yeah.
is that I'm gonna send you that Japanese Hulk Hogan thing.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you that Tiger Driver 91.
Okay.
But also, if you get a chance, um, by some way, I don't know, maybe I'll give you my network login,
Okay.
my WWE network. There's a match between a guy NXT UK. There's a match between a guy named Walter and Ilya Dragunov, I think his name.
Okay.
And Walter's the UK champion. He's like a 6'5" Austrian guy.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like an old school wrestler. It looks like a 70s wrestler, right? Like Harley Race or some shit.
Okay.
And this match was fucking old school as shit. I mean,
Okay.
like bloody chops and all this real rough, like stiff looking shit. It
Yeah.
was amazing. It
Okay.
was my favorite rematch of the year so far. It's fucking amazing. And it was legit all old school style shit. We're just
Okay.
brawling. We're brawling like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So, I'll send you those clips, and then if you want to watch the match, let me know, and
Okay.
we'll go from there. But Zach, is
100%.
there anything else you want to mention before we end the podcast?
No, that was it. That's a lot of the big stuff. Orders out of whack, guys. But that's keeping it fresh,
Yeah,
rotating, doing a bunch of crazy stuff. Adapt, overcome.
there we go.
What was
Well,
the fighting
guys,
game thing? What was it? Was oh, it was what was it? I feel like it was on a T-shirt. It was like buff, nerf, adapt,
oh yeah,
overcome, something like that.
something like that. It was downright fierce.
Downright fierce.
Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Um, I'm not an old man.
Yeah.
I'm not old professional wrestling grump guy. Not yet, at least. Thanks guys for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back next week with more License to View
See you guys.
here on the podcast channel. Later, guys.